Good day, everybody. Welcome. Happy Wednesday. This is the live stream that goes out each week, a co production, a co stream on the channels of Herbert from Brighter with Herbert, on Nicholas Gibbs' channel, Investing Against the Grain, and on Futuraza. We've got Nick here. We've got special guest Jon Twigge, who is going to join us in the conversation today. We're talking about a very important topic. What is Q4 going to look like? We've got some headwinds with the IRA expiring in the US, one of Tesla's largest markets, but we've got some tailwinds with new models, the Model Y L ramping in China, the more affordable model in the US, and perhaps also from the Berlin factory. We're going to dive into all that, see what we can figure out in terms of the cost, the value, the production, and the deliveries. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza and Brighter and Investing Against the Grain. Nick, how are you doing this week?
Doing good, Brian. Can I get a quick mic check? Everything sound okay?
Sounds fine to me. Jon, how's he sound to you?
Sounds great. Nice to meet you, Nick.
All right.
Likewise, yeah. I was with
All right.
Randy last night, and he always tries to tweak everything. So
So
just had to
don't
make sure
stand
we're
too
good.
close.
Exactly.
Right. So what's going on is we had Tesla showed record sales in Q3. Q4, is it going to be another record? Q4 is historically a strong quarter for automotive sales. This time is a little different. We've got some regulatory thumbs that have been or have been lifted from the scales, and now we've got an opportunity to see what we can figure out. I'm going to start with this slide here, if I can hit the right button. This is showing what Tesla did last quarter, and it's easy to say, well, they can, produce as many this quarter as last quarter, but you'll notice that even though the deliveries were 497, production was only 447. So if they increased production over 447 by 50,000 units, all that would do is get them back to the inventory level they had before the last quarter. Um, First blush thoughts on all of that. Nick, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I've kind of done a 180, Brian. I think maybe a couple weeks ago we were talking about this, and I'm starting to I'm starting to think that it actually might be a really good Q4. Um, n- Maybe matching what we did in Q3. I'm not expecting anything too crazy as far as a blowout compared to or looking compared to number Q3, but it looks like China's coming on strong, and these new threes and Ys, maybe there is a big market for it. Maybe there are a lot of people looking for them. I'm a little hesitant on it, but especially if we can get into Europe, I think in Europe it'll be a really big hit. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. What about you, John?
Well, I saw you talking to people a couple of weeks ago. I saw you almost sounding a bit depressed that the price cut didn't offset the loss of the tax credit. But I think that's water under the fridge.
Has to be.
That food has been spoiled. We've got to forget about it. As much as I hate wasting food, but in Europe we've got the opposite effect. That well, in the UK at least, we got the opposite effect, where we've got a new grant coming recently and a price reduction. And I was taking a look at the prices of the new model in Germany, and it appears it's down from 50,000 euros to 40,000. That's a big drop.
Huge drop.
But you've then got to think about the actual effect for the driver and how much they pay per month. So maybe we'll come back to that in a little bit, because there's 2 or 3 factors that all fit together to make it even more affordable.
I think that's pretty interesting. In the US, the complaint I have seen, Nick brought it up, is that, well, this is sure it's 5,000 less in Tesla dollars, but it's 2,500 more than a better car was last month. But outside the US, this is just a cheaper variant. And Berlin has already announced that they're going to be producing it. That is something I can share here. That we're seeing an announcement out of Berlin saying, yeah, this it begins. It is deliveries are coming soon. This is confirmed. This is going to be just 5,000 cheaper. And what I would say to that is, you've got it cut a lot of features. Some people really want that subwoofer. Some people really want one feature or another. But do you $5,000 want that one feature? If you can cut the one thing you do want versus the other things you don't want and save 5 grand, maybe that's enough to sway buyers. And again, maybe not so much in the US. We'll talk about that in a minute. But just talking about other markets, you gotta do something, right?
Yeah.
So I think you
Brian,
could
I
sell.
was going to say the other thing too that has kind of got me like maybe being a little more I mean, at the end of the day, I'm always going to end up becoming more optimistic. It's just my personality that I'm not just going to stay upset. So understand that inherent bias I have, just my personality. But the more I think about it, I don't believe it's only $5,000 more cost effective. I think that's just where they're starting. And I think come November, come December, we're going to see that drop and we'll get an idea of what the true cost is. I don't really know. It's just me speculating. But if you don't start at your bottom price, you do market discovery. So you put out a price, you see what you can get, you see where the demand is, you fill that. Then if you need more, okay, then you can step it down. So I think there's a good chance that that's how this plays out.
And one thing I was saying as soon as this was released, even before it was released, I was saying there's a good chance that this could have an LFP pack instead of an NMC or NCA pack. That would be a more affordable battery. And in the German configuration, it has LFP. There are two ways to get LFPs for US autos. One is to just import them and pay the tariff. That may be cost effective. With the IRA gone, the sourcing requirement is also gone. And we know Tesla has sold LFP models out of Fremont before. The standard Model 3 was an LFP battery. And there's also LFPs being made in Michigan, where I am today, by the way, by LG. And we know Tesla has a $4.5 billion contract to buy those batteries. That's a possibility. So I do agree with Nick that there is more than 5,000 in cost reductions on Tesla's basis. But what I expect to see is not a price cut on this exact spec, but that when we see a slightly different spec, maybe they switch the battery pack, which means the 0 to 60 and the charge speed and all that also change. And maybe they add back in the autopilot, or they add back in some little the folding mirrors, for example, which, as I understand, were not cut in Germany, only in the US, that we could see a price adjustment on that.
Can I
What
say
do you
as well,
think?
I took a quick look
Yes.
at the US site, and I believe I'm right that there's an interest rate on the new one of 2-3% more because it's new, which if they drop that to the same as the standard, I think there's been 0% offers. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it makes a difference on your monthly payment. So that will also come down at some point to match the others, I guess.
All seem reasonable to me. Now, when we look at, I'll pull up this post from Roland Percher in regards to China. We're seeing some good news there. What do we got here? For the week of October 6th through 12th, reported 11.3 thousand registrations, up 126% from last week and 33% year over year. The quarter is down 5.7% quarter over quarter, 58% up year over year. We're still seeing strong numbers out of China. The IRA didn't affect China. It didn't affect Germany. China doesn't have the same kind of social and political debates regarding Tesla, I guess is a very polite way to put it. To them, it's just a car, a good car, a car they like, that is now available in a new trim that many buyers, I guess, had been waiting for, the slightly larger YL. What are we thinking about China?
I would look at those numbers at the top, and I would always go for the year over year, because as we know in China, especially with the delivery waves and when they deliver to Europe versus the rest, week over week, even quarter over quarter can be
noisy. This is noisy for quarter over quarter.
Yeah. Well, not just noisy. There is a pattern depending where you are in the quarter. and where you are in the weekly cycle. I would always want to go year over year, but of course we also know there's the annual sales are either going up or down, but I think that gives us a better idea.
So this is the year over year chart. In blue is 2025, and you can see that it is just about the second best year ever, behind only last year. This year, of course, there was the disadvantage that the line was down for a period of time to retool for the new Juniper Edition Model Y refresh. This shows us that since that downtime, it has recovered. It has held pretty darn steady. We're seeing, frankly, good numbers out of China. And what I've been hearing is that we may expect to see China's weekly numbers continue to improve. The new Juniper is designed to be more simple to build, which would improve line speed. The simpler it is, the quicker the line can move. What do you guys, Nick, what do you think in terms of China demand, China numbers?
When I first saw that all these numbers come out, my initial instinct's like, oh, this is exciting. But then my initial instincts also, is this because they're not shipping out as many vehicles? Is this a sign of something else that might be concerning? Because we know normally there's lots of RoRos that are sent out and they want to distribute as far as possible before they focus locally. And so Troy banned me, blocked me, ousted me, castrated me, whatever you want to use, a long time ago. I'm excommunicated from his list, so I don't know if he's posted anything about it. But that's my only concern.
Yeah. I am also banned from Troy's estimates. I am not permitted to see them.
You're part of the club. I didn't know you were.
It is
I didn't see you at the last meeting.
Oh, it is a very big club. I was on the other side of the conference hall, and it was so crowded. No, what happened is, his list, anyone who speaks ill of his production and delivery estimates is summarily blocked. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. But he does do good work, and so that's why it'd be good to know what he's put out there and see if he has any comments on it.
But what he says is he does the best work. And that's one thing that I take a bit of issue with, but taking issue with it was sufficient to get me and many, many others blocked. So it's frustrating. He's saying 428 is his delivery number for this quarter, according to Randy Kirk, who is not blocked and I think is even a paid subscriber. So 428 to me seems low, but it's not impossible this early in the quarter. I think the only thing that's impossible is trying to say with some accuracy what is actually impossible.
But what's your take on the fact that there's so many local deliveries, and if there's a risk to this, meaning less being shipped externally? Like, it's just hard to know if that's true signal or if it's a sign of concern.
I haven't seen anything that would suggest there is concern in China, either for domestic demand or for export demand. And we do know that Tesla continues to add more countries to its export list. It is always picking more markets in which to enter. I have it on good authority that this year they could enter into the Nepal market and dominate, selling literally hundreds of cars. And that would be very exciting, but not in Tesla scale. So these smaller markets, the smaller and smaller markets you go into, the less impact it has. But I haven't seen anything to lead me to believe that Shanghai is other than at capacity and trying to increase that capacity.
Yeah, if you want to know Troy's numbers, I'd be very happy to pass them on to you if I wasn't blocked as well.
You're also blocked.
I'm blocked, yes. I did subscribe for a while. There's a very big market coming on, but I presume you'll know, Brian, that it's only just beginning to start in India. But will they come from Europe?
No, those are coming from China.
Okay.
Even though India does not care for that, it's how it is. It's just how it is. If you don't want us to ship them from China, you need to actually get aggressive with allowing us to ship them from anywhere.
What made me wonder is the fact that the Taiwanese ones, for political reasons, come from Europe, don't they? So
They do. And the thing with India, I've seen people saying, well, the demand is so very low. Could be. I think it's too soon to know just how low that demand is. We've got 1.4 billion people in India. Their top 1% would be, 14 million people. Even the top 0.5%, 7 million people. Surely some of those are going to be interested in buying a car that's a little bit more expensive, and having even a good percentage of 7 million buyers is enough. Will that materialize? I'd say too soon to say.
I was in India for a charity cycle ride a few years ago. So we're talking 10 years ago. But at one point, as we were being toured around, they took us, they said, we said, some people said, we want to go and see things, show us things. So they took us to the mall where all the Western shops were. Of course, some people, everybody was saying, no, we want to see Indian things. But it was just like being in the US, all of the brands, all those things. And I remember a figure of something like 200 million middle class. It's a fairly large market of people that could afford a car. And then, of course, that's where a more affordable model might be even more impactful, because that's a very large market when you get to the right prices.
And the Model Y would be more important than the Model 3, but there would need to be an India edition. You do want 8 inches of ground clearance. 200 millimeters is kind of a minimum for roads of that condition to actually be able to get around without dragging the skid plate all day.
And they would need the roof bars as well, because when we were there, we saw cyclists even with very large, all sorts of things, complete families on one moped, things like that. So they do like to pile up on top of the cars as well. So yeah, roof bars are essential.
Interesting. So now let's talk about the US. We've got some headwinds. There are 2 that I'm looking at. One, of course, being the end of the IRA, but the second being a lot of buyers who were going to buy in Q4 pulled their orders forward to Q3, which means to me that even if on the 30th of the month they had announced, you know what, never mind, we'll extend it to the end of Q4, but then it's gone forever, I still think US sales would be weaker in Q4 than you would expect seasonally, just because so many buyers pulled their orders. What do you think of that?
I'm sorry, you broke up at the end there for me.
Oh, just that Q4.
The pull forward?
Will that be? Are there going to be enough buyers in the U.S.?
I see. This is where it's hard to know, right? Like, this is pure speculation, but I think the further we get away from the IRA credits, the better chance there will be. And again, if there is that price elasticity, like I think there might be, then I think it's a non-issue as far as demand goes. But it's hard to imagine that anyone who knew of the credits, I think, took advantage of it. If you didn't know about the credits and then you're thinking you're in the market to buy a vehicle, well, you didn't know about it before, so you don't know what you missed out on. And so that's how I kind of think about it. And so I don't know. I think the answer is kind of messy. I think it's a little bit yes, a little bit no. Like, clearly, people pull their orders forward. Clearly, people put orders that they wouldn't have other. My best friend, they have a Model Y and a Model 3. The deals were just so good, they bought a Cybertruck. They couldn't not. So, all right, at those prices, can't afford not to buy it. So I think there's a lot of things like that where people are like, all right, well, might as well take advantage of this. So, I don't, what percentage of the US sales were that? Was it 1%? Was it 0.1%? I have no idea. But I think if we could match Q3 is probably Q3 is probably the anomaly, not what's going to happen in Q4. I think Q4 is strong regardless, and I think Q3 probably would have been less, and Q4 would have been stronger. And so I think if Q4 can match what Q3 does, I think it'll be very good. And so I kind of think it's going to pan out that way.
Okay, John?
Yeah. Q4, as we all know, traditionally higher than the others. So there's got to be some people that will only come in and buy one just naturally without knowing about the credit, etc.
Exactly.
One of the things on those figures and associated to them of the numbers sold and made was that we were down to virtually or maybe even zero inventory. And as we know, I believe is it that as long as you placed a deposit and you had a firm delivery date, you still get. So what we don't know is, are there 30, 50,000 orders in the pipe already that came near the end of that period? So we might actually get a little bit of that pull forward still left over. We don't know how much.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
That's
that
a really
is a
good
good
point.
point. Yeah, if it's 1,000, I'll take it. But if it's 5, 10 or more, I haven't heard any even anecdotes from the sales centers. I avoid those kinds of anecdotes because I found them historically deeply unreliable, but usually someone posts them. So it's interesting that we haven't seen it. Do you think, either of you, that we might see guidance on that, some information on that at the earnings call on, later this month?
Oh, I mean, they're gonna have to give some type of guidance. If not, the stock's gonna tank. So,
Well, I mean guidance on how many sales were overhung from last quarter on the binding
nah,
contracts.
they never get into granularities like that, and I wouldn't want them to either, um, because it'll just be spun in a negative no matter what. Either they say it's a certain amount, and then Wall Street says, "Oh, well, the only reason they did good in Q4 is because of the leftover trickle effects of the IRA, not because people actually want the vehicles." Or, well, it's gonna be a bad quarter because whatever. So it just gets spun wrong. But they never give nuanced details like that. I anticipate they just guide saying that they anticipate a strong Q4. That they, I think the most bullish thing they could say would be something like, "We are not demand constraint or production constraint," which seems like that was the case in Q3.
Mm. And it's the parking lot paradox all over again. If the parking lot is full of cars, it means Tesla can't sell them,
They
and if
can't
the
sell it.
parking
They're
lot is
stocking.
empty, that
Yeah,
means they
it's
can't build them.
exactly.
So no need. I would agree, and also it doesn't matter because within a matter of weeks, we should have it cleared out anyhow.
Yeah, GLJ Research has a job for you there, Brian.
Oh God. Yeah. I would still like to know who funds him. I ask him periodically, and interestingly, he won't disclose his funding source, which I feel like that might be an FCC or SEC violation.
Mhm.
But without evidence, what are you going to do? So that's great. Um,
Yeah,
what do
I'm
we
just
think?
wondering if we
Yes.
might get guidance if those different factors, we've got Q4 going up, we've got some overhang pulling us up, but after the overhang, we've got some of the pull forward left. So we don't know how that will balance out. And if it's even close, I don't think we'll hear anything. But if they expect it to be much lower, maybe it'll get a bit of a mention.
So that's one thing. So we could see, it's very reasonable to believe that Q4 will be soft in the US market, although the overhang can help and the introduction of the more affordable model could help. We don't know yet to what degree, but in other markets, China should be up for Q4 over Q3. Germany should be up for Q4, especially if they start ramping the more affordable model. And then there's the issue of the UK market. John, you and I had a discussion about this recently. Tell us what you have found out since then about the incentive in the UK as it pertains to Tesla.
And there's another factor that we didn't talk about before, which I think needs to be added in terms of affordability. The first thing is I've looked at the prices in Germany today, and I asked Grok, what's it like across Europe? Germany appears to be the old rear-wheel drive model at 50,000 euros, the new cheaper model at 40,000. That's a big drop, 20%. That might alone bring it into some markets. Well, it will make the addressable market bigger. Does it pull it into the fleet market, which we know in Germany is massive compared to retail? But the second factor is, if Grok is telling me the truth, there's an almost 10,000 euro grant for EVs. So
Oh,
what you have to do is say, well, it used to be 50 at the cheapest price, minus the 10,000 is 40. If it's now 40 minus 10,000, that's 30. So the actual sticker price minus grant is down 25%. That's getting really serious. But the third factor, and I was thinking about this because maybe we're not allowed to mention Renault, French cars in a US discussion, but we bought a little Renault Zoe, tiny little thing that you wouldn't even recognize as a car over there. And it cost us a lot of money 4 years ago, £30,000, probably almost $40,000 for a tiny car. But £7,000 down, bought it with a final balloon payment. The monthly payment was £200 a month. But the key thing that matters, switching from a diesel car, you have those in the US, you don't many, do you? But a diesel car, saving £200 a month in fuel. So we had effectively zero extra monthly payment to have a new car during that period. So if we add that on as well, let's take the effective saving on that German car, which is already down to 30 with the grant. Your monthly payment, let's say it's €600, is effectively down to 400 or 300, depending where those numbers fall. So the percentages to people at the lower range are actually even more significant. If we go to the UK, we've recently, as in just 2 months ago, got a new EV grant, which was somewhat of a surprise. There's two levels, and the two levels are somewhat of a mystery, very roughly described in the government guidance as having something to do with the manufacturing sustainability. Prior to us actually hearing which cars were going to get the grant, most people were assuming that most non-Chinese cars would get the full almost £4,000 discount. The lower level is £1,500. And it turns out, as a surprise, many of them are just getting 1,500. Maybe the factories in France and various Germany, they're too old. I don't know what that's being measured on. But if we can get those new affordable models, there's a price cap of £37,000. If those two models fall under that, and with Tesla's extremely modern factory in Berlin, there's a chance they'll get a further 4,000 off. So a Model Y, cheapest one, was £45,000. If I translate the German price into euros of about the same of 36,000, and we knock another 4 off, we're down to 32,000. We've gone from £45,000 to £32,000. Plus, anybody moving from gas might save another £100 or £200 a month. We're looking at an incredible difference. In the UK, obviously not as many people as the US, but the percentage of cars being sold in the UK that are EVs is something like 35% in the last couple of months or so. So actually, we're not much smaller of a market than the US. We might double sales of Model Y if we can get them at the grant level and shipped across fast enough. We don't have them yet, and I suspect there's, first of all, they have to get the factory up and running for right-hand drive, which is always a challenge. They could be waiting for news on that grant to see what level they get and where to price accordingly. So we're still waiting.
Should we expect to see any of those sales this quarter, or would those be pushed into Q1?
Well, in Germany, of course, but it's already on the website, so I hope so.
I meant in the UK.
We sometimes wait months for new models, but it's improved. Berlin's a lot closer than China. It takes 6 weeks to get from China on the first boat. So maybe in the last month, who knows?
That would be tremendous. If you could knock a quarter off the cost of a Model Y, that's hard to argue that that's not a more affordable version of the same car. 25% is a substantial discount. Nick, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I think this is going to be really meaningful for Europe. I mean, all the points have already been mentioned, but also the same effects we have here stateside with the IRA and $7,500 tax credit. You're not going to have those same effects, right? Like you said, Brian, it's just a net new product, over the rest of the world, not just Europe, the rest of the world. So I think we might be, I don't know, overplaying is the wrong word, but overemphasizing the issues for Q4. Uh, and John, I thought you brought up a really good point, with how many of those are going to bleed into Q4 for actual deliveries, right? So that might be a lot. That might be a bunch. I mean, if you just had to put essentially a down payment and you don't need to have your vehicle delivered till December, like that counts towards Q4. So I think that could actually be really, really meaningful. And then I really do think there will be a market for these more affordable vehicles. My fear is that it goes the way of the Cybertruck. And I know there's many reasons why it might not, but it is a fear of mine. And if that becomes the case, then it'll just be one of those things where it's like, well, would we have been better off just working on driving more awareness about Tesla vehicles and how much they actually cost? Because there's still a large, I would say the majority of people out there still don't know what a Tesla is, or that they don't cost 100 grand each. I would put money on that. At least 50% of the populace out there in the United States don't know those two things.
I had a conversation recently with a dear friend who I've known for ages, who found out that we have a Tesla and two Teslas in the household. And the first question is, are you guys rich now? And that's very, very kind of you. But no, it's a normal person's car now. The Model 3 cost well below the average U.S. new car price. The Model Y, even before incentive, was priced below the average U.S. new car price. After incentive, quite a bit less. So there are misconceptions. This week, I'm at the fourth Roadmap Conference in Detroit, Michigan. And this is an event for mobility, sustainability, automation, autonomy, electric, all of that. And we're all on the same page. We all are pushing for the same thing, and we're all facing the same obstacles. People don't understand the realities behind how unserious range anxiety is with most vehicles most of the time. Don't understand how affordable EVs can be, especially over time. And we're trying to figure out ways to actually get the word out, and it is deeply challenging. And that's what we're trying to figure out. I would say a quick word of housekeeping on this episode. There will be no after show. Typically, each week I do an after show where I answer all the questions and comments that came in. I'm on the road. It is not feasible for me to do all that. This show is going out on Nick's channels for Investing Against the Grain. It's going out on Futuraza. It's going out on Brighter with Herbert. If you're watching it on one of those, please consider subscribing. And if you're watching and consider subscribing to all of us, because we're all doing our best out here to do good work.
Brian, I'm just
yes.
thinking, right up the start, you said, do you need the sunroof? Do you need the glass roof? Do you need the subwoofer? Those, I mean, we might be in a position to buy a Tesla. Those are kind of luxury decisions. Which one do I go for? What's best value for money? When you move down the market, the decision often primarily is, can I afford a car at all? Yes. What's the bottom level? And often the sales are driven on, what's your monthly payment? How can I afford that monthly payment? And you said if it's 25% less, in practice, it's even less, because if you're moving from gas to electric for the first time, you can knock off 100 or 200 a month. If you've got a £5,000 deposit, the difference between that deposit and the entry level is even less. You're going to have some people at the bottom end of the market are going to be looking at a monthly payment 40 or 50% lower than it would have been at the higher price without a grant. And that's going to be massive. I think the effects in certain markets are going to be enormous. And there's a lot of people out there thinking, I would love a Tesla, and have never been able to get near one.
A lot of the features they cut are features that didn't exist in the car until about a year ago. Of course, the car's always had more speakers than the new affordable one, and it's always had the panoramic glass. But as for the rest of it, the LED lighting, the light bar, those are new features that they're just taking back out. I spoke with a gentleman a week or so ago who just was looking at the more affordable Model 3, and he said how much better it is in almost every way than his original Model 3 that he bought in 2018 when they first came out, and how he would consider, even though he doesn't need to, moving to that one just for the fact that it has the new hardware and all that. So their perspective is,
including a bumper
yeah,
camera,
yes, including the bumper camera. It's
which could be important for some people thinking, well, this is an investment. It might become a robotaxi.
Better be.
Yeah.
entirely possible.
There,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say there's also, maybe not for Q4, but I definitely think going into 2026, we might also start to see some extra sales or extra momentum due to what's happening at GM right now, what's happening at Ford right now. It seems like they're definitely, I mean, GM's definitely pulling back now when it comes to their EV initiatives, so much so that they're willing to take billions of dollars of a hit right now. And, if everyone read those headlines or saw, the articles or read the articles, saw the interviews, that's so far what they're going to take as a hit. There are more impairment charges to come in the coming quarter. So it's very interesting to see GM, maybe not so much Ford just yet, but you've definitely seen GM pull back the reins on EVs. And when that happens, well, you're just creating a vacuum for anyone who wants an EV to be directed back to Tesla. So it's just, the irony is kind of funny to see how things are panning out, especially as the tax credit gets removed. That, well, it seems like Elon was right all along. We shouldn't have had it to begin with. And at the end of the day, it's just going to benefit Tesla to remove the EV tax credit. So remove it anyways. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
I do think it's too early to declare victory overall. There's definitely winners and losers in this. It's pretty clear to me that GM and Ford will be the losers in this. GM is going to lose economies of scale further with Acura killing their EV that was being made by GM. That doesn't help GM in either way. I assume they were getting a margin on that, and that automatic margin for a product that's not their problem to sell is gone. So that's not going to help them. GM is the marquee sponsor at this fourth roadmap conference, which is a little weird to me when they're not terribly interested in selling EVs. But hey, maybe they committed to it a long time ago. I don't know. There's going to be in Q1, we're going to be seeing a further ramp of the affordable model, perhaps in the US. It may be fully ramped before the end of Q4. It's possible that everybody who wants it will have it by then, especially because I don't know how much demand there will be in the US. In Germany, it's being released a hair later, and I think the demand will be stronger there. That will bleed into Q1. So let's talk about Q1. Do you think that sales of Model YL
We've lost Brian for a minute.
Okay, good. I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Shall we just get on with it without him?
Yeah, why not?
I'm sure he'll come back in a minute. What he was saying is in Michigan, and I think he was saying, as I heard in the back room for a minute,
there
that
we
he's
go
on a Starlink connection.
I am on a Starlink. I am on a Starlink. It is true. Do we think that Q1 will be stronger with the benefit of the YL in China and the YS in Berlin? And do we think the SNL will come to the other markets sooner than, within Q1 to Q2 kind of time frame? Nick, why don't you go first?
I think the YL will probably go to other markets. I do think it'll eventually come to the States. I think Elon's just trying to prevent any kind of Osborning because it would happen here. I don't know if everywhere else would have an Osborne effect. It absolutely would happen here. And I do think Q1 could be pretty strong. It really, I think it depends on when these new models go for sale in Europe. And I don't know how the European cycle works that much, uh, or even how Giga Berlin is set up. Like I imagine it's going to be the same as what is in China and the States as far as retooling, and as far as just peak demand tends to be around Q4. But when it's not just peak demand, right? It's also a new introduction of new vehicles, which makes it, to your point, it was probably why you're posing the question, plausible that Q1 could be pretty exciting. But I really think Q1, even if that's true, I think Q1 is going to be all about production of the Cybercab. I think Cybercab starts in Q1.
John, what are you thinking for Q1?
I think different markets get affected in different ways. The US, there's obviously a market, I would have thought, for a longer Y with 6 seats. Less so in Europe, but there's certainly a niche of people that want those. There's also a few taxi drivers that would want the extra seats because they take one of them. So some larger vehicles are useful for that. India, again, if that begins to ramp up, the YL could be significant there. What I think becomes more important is we're seeing FSD 14.1.1 with Elon saying 14.2, or was it 0.3? Seems sentient. There's got to be a possible breakthrough, I would have thought, within 6 to 12 months of a version that can be a robotaxi. Now, it's interesting that GM pulling back, Ford slowing at least, various other people will not have capacity. Suddenly, do the fleets come in? Do the rentals come back in when Teslas can drive themselves, even in a supervised mode? If you're renting a car to go away for a fortnight, you're going to be a lot happier with a car that drives itself, even if you've got to be in that driver's seat, if you don't need to do much at all. So I could imagine on that cheaper model and FSD available, maybe even FSD available, and you can turn it on and off as a rental. Could you choose whether to take it for an extra fee? Would they do it on a daily basis? So I can imagine in some markets a cheaper price with FSD in the next year or so, at some point, Q2, Q3, later next year. There could be huge demand, and the other manufacturers are going to really struggle to compete both in terms of capacity and features.
If you had heard that Tesla was going to be releasing the YL, but only from one of the factories, would you have guessed that factory was going to be China, or would you have said it's going to the US for sure?
That's a hard one. If I really think about it, I would say probably US.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that at first thought you might say the US because they have a preference for bigger cars, but China's just a really big market. So even a niche might be significant. So very difficult to know without knowing both markets in great detail.
Exactly. That's the tension, right? Is that you've got, I mean, it's like dwarfs all other markets is China, right? But when it comes to size, you think US, right? We like our size, everything's bigger in Texas, whatever cliche you want. So I would have thought US, but and the other thought going through my head is, do you really want a distraction for the team in that Giga Texas when you're trying to bring on Cybercab, right? Like if that's actually something that we're going to be ramping up, do we want to have that confluence of issues? And then at the same time, we stop selling S and X in China, is my understanding. It makes sense to replace the X with this vehicle in China to kind of fill that market segment. And in the US, we still have production lines for X. So
I like those thoughts. Those are definitely things I hadn't considered. For me, it was more just the fact that I'm convinced that the Cybercab team is not necessarily the same team that would be working on the YL. So it wouldn't pose as big of a distraction, but it would be a distraction. and I would have just been sure that the US, the big car market US, big trucks and SUVs was where it would start. And also the fact that Texas has surplus production capacity, where China has very little additional capacity. But if this is a simpler model and the other Y is simpler, that means maybe they do have that extra 5-10% capacity, and we just didn't see it because it was still ramping from the refresh into the higher volume.
Could it simply be speed of execution? You know, you're the
It could
expert,
also,
Brian, in terms of how fast China do things. That first
yes,
factory in 11 months, it might just be they're a month or two ahead.
yes, yes. I don't expect to see YL in the US in this quarter because Elon said probably the end of the second half of next year, if at all. So if he releases it anytime after June, that's dead on the money. If he releases it anytime before June, we beat expectations. But if it comes out this year, he was just plain lying. And I don't think he wants to just plain lie, if at all possible to avoid.
Maybe the title of this show is important here, that Q4 might be soft. So the last thing they want to do is have people waiting for a different model in this quarter.
Yes, I can agree with that. I haven't had a chance to see. Nick, have you heard or seen anything regarding how deliveries are looking now that the quarter has ended? Sometimes I'll swing by a sales or service center just to see how it's going. I haven't done that this quarter, and I haven't heard anything. Are Saturday, Sunday deliveries happening? Are they going well? Do we know?
Nick's mute.
Okay, amateur hour. I haven't looked. I haven't even swung by a showroom. I've just been in baby mode over here.
Yeah,
but
I haven't heard anybody who has either.
Yeah, I haven't either. I think a lot of the focus has been on FSD 14. I think that's kind of sucked the air out of a lot of the conversation. And, we just got the new vehicles. So I'm not really that surprised. I mean, are you surprised we haven't heard that much? I mean, other than the recent numbers out of China.
No, I'm not surprised, but we I'm on X pretty obsessively, and it seems like the sort of thing I would have heard, but no, everything I'm hearing is version 14 and pretty please may I have it just a little bit, sir. Don't know about that. I did get Tron update downloaded, but I'm out of town, so I can't even enjoy my complimentary advertisements, which
I didn't get
intend
that.
to enjoy. Weird.
That's
Weird.
interesting.
I hope that everyone gets it before the movie leaves theaters. Otherwise, what are we doing? But it does look like a cool bit of silly feature that I didn't pay for, but I got for free. Fine. I'll either use it or I won't. So, yeah, I think going into this quarter, I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't think we'll be quite as low as Troy's 438, 428. Wall Street, I think, is at 439. My question is, because we only made 440, 450 last quarter, despite selling far more than that, is the real demand going to mean we need to ramp back up to restock inventory? If we have a banger quarter for production, does that mean it'll actually result in deliveries or just restocking supply?
We actually got to negative, didn't we? Almost, if you include delivery days, in terms of it was down. I mean, listening to Jeff, he was saying it was almost an unbelievable low level of inventory. Were we lower in China for a few weeks while they swapped to the cheaper model?
I don't recall.
No. So it's possible manufacturing was slightly lower across the world somewhere as they swapped models, YL and various things. So it's possible that just full production is higher than last quarter's. Maybe we 470, 480 even fairly easily. But they obviously can't sell more than they make because there is no inventory. So.
Right. This quarter, they will definitely make more than they sell because we were already down to effectively none. I mean, if they're in transit, you can't move them. But what I saw was I would look at local inventory and say, no, there's actually, I went and looked. I looked yesterday morning, there was 12 in inventory. And the person I was talking to said, go look again. And I looked again and there was 3. I'm like, oh boy, these are actually moving out pretty quick in Q3. Yeah, so I don't know. In terms of the financials for Q3, Nick, what are you expecting to see in terms, because there's going to be a distortion there when you're clearing out that much inventory that you have yet to replace. I got bees on me, man. I got bees. What are you expecting to see in terms of impact on the financials?
So I think the financials will be good, but just as in the previous quarters, I think the financials are going to be irrelevant this quarter. There's probably it's probably going to get a little messy because of the ZEV credits potential. I don't know how much pull forward that could also. I mean, they might have sold a lot of ZEV credits, or maybe have very limited ZEV credits sold. So I don't know how that's going to play out. But I think it's going to be mainly about the guidance for the next quarter. So I think this one will be, to your point, a distortion. But I do think that the numbers are going to be pretty good across the board. I think, I mean, they had a good quarter and they had good utilization of their factories and their lines. I mean, that's not much more you can ask for when it comes to margins.
No, and I'm expecting to see as a percentage a slightly better. I'm expecting to see crazy numbers on energy, and I did the math for Q2. The amount of money that they generated was something like $5 million a day just out of Lathrop, which is so much money that they couldn't have made more money if they were counterfeiting in that location. It's just crazy. John, do you have any thoughts on what this will do to the financials?
Well, we've got
a
clear cash flow change in terms of 50,000 cars sold more than made. So that's worth 2 billion in cash flow. It's obviously just cash, and that will adjust again through the next quarter or two. But that's going to be nice. And then obviously energy is bringing more cash in. I think we'll probably see the biggest jump ever in terms of the balance of money they've got in the bank. Margin
Does that
wise,
seem reasonable? Yes, go ahead.
Margin wise, I'm just going to say I don't know. I mean, that's not the kind of thing I try to follow.
Sure.
But it is possible as we move forward that Q4 might have, or Q1 at least, might have better margins. The new ones probably got initially good margins. So,
yeah.
Nick, is that reasonable?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely reasonable. But I've been saying this for a while. I don't think that it even matters anymore at this point. The narrative for, if you care about what's going to move the stock, is going to be, are you going to have a dip in Q4 or not? Right? Do you feel good about the guidance on that? And if you say we feel strong, we'll be able to sell everything that we make, great. And then it's all going to be about FSD and robo taxis and rolling it out and how's it looking, what's the expansion, how many more cities, and anything that's holding you up, like why aren't you expanding, why aren't you adding more vehicles, right? However they answer those questions, I think we've made the transition. Nobody cares anymore about the actual numbers right now, because the people who are in the stock at this point are in it for the revenue that's going to come from autonomy, FSD, and humanoids. Like, that's where we are now. Like, I think Elon has done whether you like it or not, he's done a really good job at telling people to sell the damn stock if you are not in it for FSD and Optimus.
When we hit the high 400s a while back, earlier in the year, I said, look, if you are the people who are coming to me and saying, you've been hyping the stock too much, Brian, I blame you, sell right now and never speak to me again, because I never told you to buy it. And, I've never told you to sell it except to shut you up, and only when it was very high. The last thing I wanted to talk about was on the Cybercab. Nick, you're of the opinion that we should see strong numbers by Q1. I think Q1 numbers would be very low, if any meaningful numbers, a rounding error at best within Q3 or Q1. Would you clarify your position on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say. I mean, I guess that's a subjective term. Strong numbers, right? I think they will clearly have started production, and we will start seeing cyber cabs out there being used by the end of Q1. I that's what
Okay.
they've guided for. I'm holding them to their words, not mine. It's what they've guided towards. So
I think, yeah, that's
that's
more
the best I can
reasonable.
do is what they guide to.
Yes, I think that's more reasonable. I misheard. I thought you were saying that we would see production in units strong enough that it would impact total unit production and delivery. And John, what are you thinking on
Well,
cybercab? I mean,
I
we're
can't
all
help
just guessing, but
I can't help linking these things together. Imagine we've got 2 billion extra cash from Q3.
What are you gonna make?
How many cybercabs can you make for that? Do they sell any cybercabs, or do they put them all straight into the fleet? The 2 billion there, plus the extra energy profit coming in, is going to pay for a lot of cybercabs, even if they keep them all and put them straight into the fleet, which is instant profit. Will they ever sell cybercab, or will they be in the fleet, just in their own?
so that was a question I was asked today. We were at the conference. Bert and I were asked by someone outside of the Teslaverse. Most of these people are from other electrification and mobility companies and philosophies. And the question was posed, who is going to buy the cybercab? And who is the customer? Are they even going to sell it? And we kind of, he's like, oh, did I strike a nerve? No, it's complicated. I think for big markets, Tesla will just own them, just do great work, sell it, keep them, make all the money. But I don't think Tesla will ever bring the cybercab to my market. My market is small. Are you going to build a cleaning depot in my little town? I don't know that they would want to. I don't think that's a priority, and I wouldn't suggest they do it. They would let me buy one or two or three. Me and my buddies could buy them. We can clean them. We can charge them. I think that even though it would be more profitable for them to operate them in a city where they have operations, in a city where they don't, just sell them to me. Sell them to Kilowatts, who's got his own Turo fleet of dozens, if not more than dozens of cars. We would be able to make a meaningful dent there.
And 2 billion would, I've just got the calculator out to check, if the production cost, and you'll tell me if I'm being silly, was only $20,000, because it's unboxed, everything is cheaper, that's 100,000. Could they sell them at cost? Because the faster they get them out, the more go on the market.
Well, early production isn't scale production. Early production costs more. And why would they need to discount them at all? I would of course pay 20,000, but I would pay 40 just the same. Why leave money on the table?
Well, it depends on the percentage of the taxi rides as well. That could be adjusted to make a difference as well.
Thoughts on that, Nick?
Mute again. Nick's mute again.
I'm sorry. I normally leave it off mute, but I have a newborn and I can hear the cry in the background, so I'm just trying to be respectful of everybody. So apologies. But
it's not coming through, so don't worry about it. I don't think.
Oh, okay. Muting myself. No, I don't really have a lot of thoughts on that. It's good, something to think about, but I don't know. I'll reserve my thoughts on that for right now.
All right.
What do you think?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I mean, I just said I think they will be willing to sell them. What are they going to do with the cash in Q1? I don't know if it's time. As soon as this gets to a ratio of 20, 30, 50 to 1 vehicles to operators, you can start scaling like crazy. At 100 to 1, I think you can scale almost infinitely. And once we hit those numbers, once we get rid of the safety hitchhiker, we're ready to go. But we're not there yet. Is that changing tomorrow?
I guess that was my question, was when you think that they would sell them or sell them to others.
Somewhere between 2 weeks and end of next year for sure. Those are, of course, Elon's 2 favorite dates. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, guys, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank Nick from Investing Against the Grain for hanging out. Jon Twigge, family, a friend of the channel and regular contributor, a group favorite for sure. Uh, Everybody in the comments, what do we miss? What do we misunderstand? You can still leave it after the show. I check my comments pretty regularly. Herbert and Nick, maybe not as freakishly and cultishly and slavishly as I do, but that's what I do. So, guys, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.